Okay.
Yep, there we go.
Very cool. And once it's up and running, I'll begin. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to Lord knows the umpteenth gazillionth first Friday in Caps history. Mike Jurkovic and Greg Correll here with you. We meet every first Friday here at Calling All Poets, and tonight we have poets from all pretty much scattered all out the world: Texas, Florida, Malaysia, the Virgin Islands, Vermont, Florida, and of course the good old Hudson Valley, and California also. So yeah, let's get started. So the way we work it is that we have 3 featured poets. Each featured poet will read 20 to 23 minutes. We go in alphabetical order. So it'll be Holly, Dr. Michael, and then Arthur Russell. And Holly, if you're ready, I'll read your intro and take it from there. Holly Iglesias' work includes 3 books of poetry: Sleeping Things Press, 53, Angels of Approach, White Pines Press, and Souvenirs of a Shrunken World, Core Press First Book Award, and a critical work, Boxing Inside the Box, Women's Prose Poetry, from Quail Press. She is the recipient of fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the North Carolina Arts Council, the Edward Albee Foundation, and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. Her current projects are Future Relics of Future Saints, a full-length poetry manuscript, and Dear Everybody, 1947, an annotated collection of letters written after World War II by her mother and 6 friends she made while working at a defense plant in St. Louis during the war. They remained friends for the rest of their lives. I believe this is Holly's 3rd time reading for us, so please, a warm caps welcome, Holly Iglesias.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. And I actually put Future Relics of Future Saints in the mail, submitting it last week. So let's see what happens with it. The poems I'm reading tonight are from that. So I'm just going to start. I've noticed that the poems I picked out, the word field comes up a bunch of times. And it made me realize that Campbell McGrath wrote a poem years ago called The Prose Poem. And it's this huge description of a field. And I only write prose poems, so watch for the fields. Watch your step. A poem halts, waits, squinting the world down to a bearable sliver. The process of reduction, like that for cider. Apples ground first, then pressed and pressed, the screw tightening with each twist until the golden juice weeps into the bucket and the mottled pulp is tossed to the pigs. It's hard to list all that's been lost, the price that was paid, so hard that even the passive voice can't soften it. And should that loss be a catastrophe, there's still no stitch for the gape of that wound. No smooth orb for that empty socket. Look, there at the edge of the field, a field of modest proportions, like this one, a heap of dirt and gravel, and beside it, a hole. Nothing to do but walk up and take a good look. The toe of your right shoe pressing against its crumbling edge. So this one comes from a section about reckoning with probably writing your last book, or not that I'm going to stop writing poems, but the work it takes to assemble a manuscript. I don't see it happening again. So part of this is about looking at how who you are in your youth begins to shape where you land up when you're like in your mid-70s, like I am. So there's a lot of retrospective perspective. Leaving the garden. Some of us withdrew our youth from Bank of America, pocketed what little we had accrued, and fled. Woodstock already passed into legend, into co-optation and cliche, our anthems of peace and love drained of dreams. Flag wavers blistered with rage, flag burners sure of defeat, wrecked soldiers shipped home to more wreckage. The first goodbye, we are leaving, you don't need us, a defiance stilled the path beneath my feet. Yes, we came home finally, but departure over and over eventually became the life. Out on the limb, the weight that had seemed so slight, closer to the trunk, became gravity itself. A heft sufficient to snap the whole branch and leave the tree bereft. And this one starts with a epigraph from Jose Marti, famous Cuban poet and patriot, and it kind of mushes a whole lot of history really fast into a paragraph. Here's the epigraph. Y todo como el diamante antes que luz es carbón, and everything like the diamond is darkness before it is light. Anguished and broken, Marti convalesced in the Catskills, where he wrote the poems that continue to outlive him and endear him to lovers and zealots throughout the hemisphere. His versos sencillos and Nitzavia-Pol's Cocina Cubana were put in my hands by my new mother-in-law, a woman a head shorter than me and always dressed for a funeral. She handed it to me as I boarded a plane for New Orleans, where I grabbed my passport from the house I shared with 6 other hippies on Panola Street, not far from the St. Charles streetcar, which began running in 1835 and at the time of my departure cost a dime. I was fleeing the States with a draft dodger and moving to Zaragoza, a fascist bastion since their civil war, where we stayed until our war was ended, not yet knowing that wars never end. By the time Saigon fell, I had 2 babies, 1 naturalized, 1 native born, a passport full of border crossings, and 2 languages, neither with a word for what I was learning of exile. And this one is kind of an homage to Jean Follain and his poem Signs for Travelers, which is about how to help aliens identify the creatures that are humans when they come to Earth. And the title is Calle de los Caídos, Street of the Fallen. And the poem was chosen because it rhymes with Valle de los Caídos, which is Valley of the Fallen, which is the huge monument outside Madrid where Franco buried the heroes of the Civil War, along with the people who had to dig the graves, and they are in there unmarked. That was finally vacated about 10 years ago as a national monument. Calle de los Caídos, Street of the Fallen. I'm not one to alert travelers from space to the signs by which they may know humans, inexperienced as I am with jet-haired girls at the cosmetic counter or little boys pissing into the gutter. Follain surely knew such things, just as he knew the great mountains of objects that holds memory within it. I may not be French or intimate with the world reduced to rubble by the great wars, but I have seen a horse dead in the street outside Mercado de Iglesias, and men in berets and bloodied aprons working at the delicate project of trussing its noble limbs before hauling it to the banks of the Ebro to butcher for the benefit of the poor, Our Lady of the Pillar gazing tenderly upon their labors and upon the sinews of the horse. And this one started a long while ago, and it was thinking about always being a stranger from moving so many times. And in revising it now for this work, it's very resonant for me about the amount of hatred for immigrants and people who are strangers who have fled their homes. God loves the stranger. God loves the stranger far from home and no way back. Loves the yearning heart, the fevered memory and appetite for the past. The stranger walks at a remove, the habits of distance evident by the tilt of his hat and his wary gait moving him from one side of the street to the other. He ducks into a luncheonette, takes a stool, and from this perch creates a place for himself, the size of a newspaper folded in half. Upon it, a mug, a bowl, a spoon. This daily shelter temporary, lasting only as long as lunch can last at a Formica counter. The food upon the plate salty, beige, alien. And this one is much less prosaic than most of them. It's more expansive and spiritual and lyrical. And it was sparked by reading Adam Zagajewski's Mysticism for Beginners. And it has the line in it that's the title of the manuscript. And it's about where I'm from. It's from the Midwest. There's a lot in it about cornfields. Prelude to a time postponed. If the poem be a field, prays the mystic, let it be a field of rice, and in it nuns and shy travelers, overhead 2 nightingales and a single heron, and waiting in the water, running her fingers through the green blades, a princess on the lamb. If the poem be a field, the mystic continues, let it be a field of corn, tassels the color of a boy's hair, lifted by the breeze, a breeze long longed for, arriving just in time for harvest. And a roadside table heaped with silver queen and jubilee and peaches and cream, farm wives tacking up signs, $2 a bag, their tattersall aprons, the only field of dreams I've ever known, their scarves and blistered hands, future relics of future saints. Two more. This one is a call and response with Diane DePrima and her revolutionary letters, which I turned to for solace when my oldest grandson told me he wasn't voting last year. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. If there's like an election that you might want to have a hand in, it would be like this one. So think about what you're going to tell your grandchildren. It didn't move him at all, but we talked about it and he had good reasons. So I'll raise my hand. This has Diane DePrima on this side, and then this is my response on this side. So this means I'm reading Diane DePrima. Critical theory, call and response. It will take all of us shoving at the thing from all sides to bring it down. Diane DePrima, Revolutionary Letter, number 8. Missives from another time, another world, but present still. Hymns from the humming hive of youth, a compendium of fire and innocence, of fevered idealism so easy to mock in later years. Let no one work for another except for love. Revolutionary Letter, number 9. The poems lift me, carry me back, braids, bandanas, overalls, and gnarly beards, the mass of us on blankets in the park, teeming like the whole earth. green, solid, earnest, plotting, planning. The stakes are myself. I have no other ransom money. Revolutionary letter number 1. We lived for a while on 20-pound sacks of rice and reckless hope. And then the world had its way with us. But courage in dark times was a seed that we planted for ourselves and those coming behind us. Get up, put on your shoes, get started. Someone will finish it. Revolutionary letter number 2. So she wrote those in the 60s, and it was published as a collection by City Lights in 71. And then the last one is a home place poem called Sod, not surprisingly, coming from the great middle. Sod. My forebears settled on the Great Plains, a sea of grass with roots so dense they cut it into blocks for houses. Fleeing the European upheavals of 1848, their arrival sparked another one that pushed the Osage, Pawnee, and Quapaw further west. Now as then, the geography is mostly flat and plain. The land shaping its people, their character, forthright and frank. In my 23rd year, I married a refugee, hoping that together we could build a world of our own, using what we had at hand and a shared sense of home. The optimism of the young must be forgiven when they move beyond their home place, unaware that custom too is a language, hard to learn, harder to translate. Thank you.
Wonderful work, Holly. Wonderful.
Excellent, Holly. Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you so much, really.
Inspiring.
If folks want to say a few nice words, please, now's your time.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Terrific.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Really enjoyed it, Holly.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Love how everything is so succinct and pithy.
Yeah. Wonderful poems, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Godspeed in getting this book. What is the title of the book that you're trying to get published?
Future Relics of Future Saints.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the title too.
Great title.
Mm-hmm.
That line was called out a number of times on chat as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very sweet. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you again, Holly.
Mhm.
All right, this is going to be a first time. We got 2 first timers, so everybody go be nice now. Michael, you with us?
Yes, I am.
Cool. Okay. Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram is the creator and host of the internationally recognized poetry podcast, Quintessential Poetry. Through his work as a retired professor of counselor education and supervision, and as a noted poet and spoken word artist, Dr. Ingram also leverages the arts, especially poetry, to bring attention to the effects of power, privilege, and oppression in our society. He is a Pushcart Prize nominee, and his second poetry collection, metaphorically Screaming, is eagerly anticipated. For more information about Dr. Ingram or the podcast, visit https://www.quintessentialpoetry.com. I met Michael through Facebook, and he was kind enough to podcast with me, and it was just excellent. I look forward to hopefully someday doing it again.
Yes.
And Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram, everybody, come on, Michael.
All right. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Michael. I bring you greetings from Washington, D.C., the epicenter of where the world is happening, it seems right now. What I'd like to do is to share some poems from my lived experience. But I also like to dedicate this program, this reading, to Juneteenth 2025, because based on the way things are headed in this country, this could be the last national federal Juneteenth that we see. So some of the poems will deal with issues around what's happening in our world. But what I'd like to do is to start with a piece titled The ain't of what is philosophy. In my youth, I embraced the is of what is, if the is what is philosophy. Blind acceptance without question. I accepted shadows as substance. The beginning will always be the end, and there is no hint of gray between black and white. But as I grew, life whispered dissent, urging me to question, to peel back the layers of is and seek the truth in the pit of ain't. For oftentimes, reality gurgles like magma beneath Mount St. Helens, illusory veil, and what we're told may not be the authentic tale. Turns out, I needed a psychiatrist to handle life's wild ride, professional help to untangle the mess inside my head. She whispered wisdom I'd never forget. She said, Michael, we do live in the gray. It's there breathing beneath the black and the white. It's there breathing again, listen to me, between the black and the white. Holding its own despite what others say is holding a space for you, my friend, to dream, to breathe, to grow, and to experience the world beyond the stifling confines of the is of what is. This new truth cracked my rigid understanding wide open, urging me to question, to seek, to understand beyond the surface. So I walked out of her office, purposefully seeking out what's behind door number 3. Is it just a rabbit hole filled with doors 4, 5, and 6? A maze to nowhere? Each threshold promising revelation, delivering only more questions, more uncertainty, the landscape of understanding shifting like sands beneath uncertain feet. If there is, we cling to, so close to our heart, shatters under scrutiny's weight, revealing a new truth, raw and unadorned, then if that's the essence, the heart of the matter, not decreed by authority, but by its own nature born. And if the is stands strong, unshaken by our doubts, then our understanding deepens, evolves, and expands, no more a borrowed truth, passively absorbed, for inquiring minds still want to know firsthand. So always remember to question what it is. For it is what it is until you find out what it ain't, and you never know what it ain't until you find out what it is. So, until that time, you'll never uncover the truth. So again, it is what it is. If it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't until you find out the essence of what it is. You know, as I turn 60, 61, and 62, I've often questioned to myself, where was I inside my own life? And that's the title of this piece. In the labyrinth of existence, amidst the twists and turns of time, there comes a moment when one pauses to ponder, where was I inside my own life? Was I merely a spectator, watching as scenes unfolded before me like a silent film? Or was I an active participant, shaping the narrative with each choice and action? In the moments of joy, where laughter danced on the lips and the heart swelled with contentment, was I fully present, soaking in every sensation, or was I elsewhere, lost in the maze of a tapestry of memories that weave together the fabric of my life? Where was I? Did I embrace each moment with open arms, savoring the sweetness of the present? Or did I act as if I was aimlessly drifting, untethered in this world? Perhaps the answer lies not in pinpointing a specific location or time, but in acknowledging the journey itself, the ebbs and flows, the highs and lows, the triumphs and tribulations. For every moment, however fleeting, navigating the labyrinth of life, discovering the essence of who I am and where I belong, worries and fears included. And in the depths of sorrow, When tears flowed freely and darkness threatened to engulf the soul, where was I then? Did I confront the pain head on, grappling with the turmoil within, or did I retreat into the shadows, seeking solace in the numbness? Where was I when dreams were born, shimmering with possibility and beckoning me towards distant horizons? Did I chase after them with unwavering determination, or did I allow them to slip through my fingers like grains of sand? And where was I when challenges loomed large, casting long shadows across the path? Did I stand tall in the face of adversity, resilient and unwavering, or did I falter, crippled by doubt and uncertainty? But regardless of where I was, I'm here now, fully engaged in life's unfolding story. Each breath, each moment, each challenge and triumph finds me present, awake and aware. No longer a spectator in my own existence, but a conscious participant in this intricate dance of being, claiming my space in the labyrinth of life with clear eyes and renewed purpose. You know, as someone who lives with depression and anxiety, what I've attempted to do over the course of my life, I guess best in the last 30 years or so, with my therapist, is to understand what is this struggle inside my mind. So I read Albert Camus' book, The Myth of Sisyphus. And as you know, Sisyphus is based on Greek mythology in terms of Sisyphus rolling the hill up to watch it roll back down again due to his scuffle with the gods. So what I attempt to do in this piece is to draw a parallel between Sisyphus' plight and the daily challenges of living with mental illness. And the piece is titled Albert Camus, Sisyphus, a constant struggle in my mind. I read the words of Albert Camus last night. My mind became the hill of Sisyphus. Thoughts, the boulder I eternally push upward, straining, gasping for breath until I collapse, crushed by the weight of a mind that does not love me. Dawn breaks, and like Sisyphus, I rise and tornadoes and hurricanes rage in my mind. The chatter within is not so gentle, not warm. It does not soothe. It does not embrace, but screams and claws relentlessly harsh, struggling to understand why my mind does not love me. I read the words of Albert Camus last night. Learned to revolt. As Sisyphus must have, not seeking escape, but meaning in the repetition, in daily struggles with a mind that does not love. Up goes the boulder of a troubled thoughts, down it crashes Sisyphus' familiar descent. In this fall, I am aware, most alive, consciousness, my curse and my blessing. I read the words of Albert Camus last night. This ceaseless task reshapes my pain, transforming my struggle into insight, anguish into art, finding fragments of joy in a mind that does not love me. The universe, as indifferent as Sisyphus' gods, yet I persist, propelled by an indomitable will, embracing the chaos. I choose to be free, accepting the absurd as my reality. I read the words of Albert Camus last night, saw my Sisyphean burden in a new light, not happy despite, but because of this fate, in this awareness, I create my own meaning. So I climb and I climb again and again, Sisyphus reborn, finding purpose in this mental refrain. For in the struggle with my mind that does not love me, I forge my path, turning darkness into dawn. I read the words of Albert Camus last night, and afterward, I could not sleep. So I think for me, as I think about depression and anxiety in the world, poetry has really helped me process things. Poetry truly is based on one's lived experience. So what I'd like to do is to share with you a meditation that I've written, and the title of it is Poetic Magma, a meditation body scan. Again, I believe in mindfulness. So here's my salute to both mindfulness and meditation from a poetic perspective. Metaphorically speaking, poetry is a lived experience. If you can't feel it, you can't heal it. So find your seat, settle in, take 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, so much that you can feel as light as Dickinson's feather, like hope perched in the soul, ready to sing. Then close your eyes, silence your thoughts, and drown out the inner sounds from the outer world. Let the concerns of this world fall away like autumn leaves on a summer morning. Let the cleansing poetic warmth you feel absorb into your feet. Dance tenderly with your toes and up your ankles and into your calves, where words begin to stir like hot molten magma seeking release. Feel the pressure build, where poems simmer. Beneath muscle and memory gathering strength, the heat rises, the stories call like serpents of sound, muscles tense with potential. The molten core expands, where breath becomes verse, where pain transforms to poetry. The chest becomes a furnace of unspoken languages, lungs billowing with verses. The heart, a crucible of raw emotion, chambers filled with unsaid words, ventricles churning metaphors, shoulders become wings, carrying the wings and the weight of the metaphor, arms lifting unwritten poems. Neck elongates, a bridge between body and voice, clearing a pathway for a poem's volcanic eruption. The mouth opens, a volcanic crater, lips parting like a tectonic plates, tongue a molten river of uncontained language. The mind becomes the caldera's rim, where consciousness explodes into fragments of light, memories melting into pure sensation. The entire body now, a landscape of pure poetry. Skin becomes page, breath becomes stanza, every cell a syllable, breaking through all boundaries of self, erupting, becoming like poetic magma. So open your eyes and let's begin. Also, what has helped with the depression and all this stuff that's happening in the world is music. I love Billie Holiday, and this is my tribute to Billie Holiday. And the title of the poem is A Little Billy in the Morning. In the quietude of morning, as the aroma of coffee sachets through the air, I find solace in the company of a little Billie Holiday. She, like the coffee I sip, is naturally low in calories and devoid of trans fat, a refreshing departure from the mundane choices of sugar or cream. The essence of Billie is a melodic undertone to today, a fine and mellow taste that complements the rich notes of the jazz she brought to life. Yet the bittersweet echoes linger, reminiscent of the haunting imagery of the strange fruit hanging sadly on the blood-colored dark green leaves in the Mississippi breeze. Choosing Billie over sugar or cream is a deliberate act, a conscious decision to embrace the raw, unfiltered emotion she encapsulates. Each sip resonates with the jazzy rhythm of her voice, creating a symphony of flavors that mirrors the complexities of life. And as I savor every moment, I acknowledge that this choice is not just about the coffee. It's a prelude to the day ahead. There's an intuition that today might unfold with a certain bitterness. And in this subtle embrace of Billie's presence, I'll find strength to face whatever challenges may come. So my morning cup of coffee becomes a ritual, a fusion of sensory experiences and emotional preparation. With Billie as my companion, I navigate the day with a little more grace, a touch more resilience, and the assurance that even in the midst of bitterness, there is a melody that will carry me through. As I think about our world, good people, and what has been happening in this country. It takes me back to a poem that I wrote almost 30 years ago now, and honestly, I don't think things have changed. So this is titled Beneath the Shade of the Sheltering Tree, near the clear cool waters of the river called America. Once, beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear cool waters of the river called America, I sought refuge from the blistering heat of the oppressive and callous sun. I was thirsty for the clear cool water. I yearned to taste its elusive goodness, goodness so sweet that it promised hope for a brighter day. Yet I was afraid to drink. I'd heard this story that if I placed my colored hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, I would change it and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, I sat and clasped my colored hands and I cried, oh, how I cried. In a short time, a Native American woman joined me. She too sought refuge from the sweltering heat of the troublesome and remorseless sun. Her soul had yet to be satisfied, and she was hungry for the clear, cool water spirit of life. Yet, like me, she was afraid to drink. She had heard the story that she placed her colored hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America. She would dilute it, and it would never, ever, never, ever, never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, she sat and clasped her colored hands and cried, oh, how she cried. Before long, a man with disabilities too sought refuge from the unrelenting heat of the indifferent and harsh sun. He had lived a shunned life, befriended only by resolve and determination that, like us, he was afraid to drink. He had heard this story that he placed his shunned and friendless hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he would contaminate it, and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, he sat and clasped his unwanted hands and he cried. Soon, a woman who loves another joined us. She too sought refuge from the scalding heat of the unforgiving and unfeeling sun. She had lived her life like an apparition and longed to come out whole and free. Yet, like us, she was afraid to drink. She had heard the story that she placed her immoral and disgraceful hands in the clear, cool waters of the river called America. She would pervert it, and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, she sat and clasped her unwanted hands, and she cried, oh, how she cried. Finally, a recently immigrated family joined us. They had moved from distant lands, seeking refuge from the burning and vicious sun. Their dreams spoke in languages of hope. Yet, like us, they were afraid to drink. They had heard this story. If they placed their alien and unknown hands into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, it would infect it, contaminate it, and it would never, ever taste as good. So beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, they clasped the unwanted and contaminated hands, and they cried, oh, how they cried. As time wore on, beneath the shade of the sheltering tree, near the clear, cool waters of the river called America, all of us desiccated from life and wasted tears, our thirst grew. So grew our collective strength and courage to risk it all and drink what was so close but seemed so far. So we all cupped our disgraceful, colored, shunned, impoverished, alien, and unwanted hands and dipped them into the clear, cool waters of the river called America, and we drank. It tasted good. It tasted sweet. we realized that our hands did not contaminate the river called America, because the river called America only knew the nature of our hearts, souls, and minds. Our drinking from the clear, cool waters of the river called America, it didn't change it. It didn't taint it. It didn't infect it. It didn't stain it. It didn't debilitate it. Our hands helped to replenish His flowing grace, and we drank to receive strength, and we drank following wherever the river went. Oh, how we drank, all full partakers of the clear, cool waters of the river called America. All right, just two more. And
That was awesome, Michael. Thank you.
well, one of the things that I'll never understand, that I will never understand as long as I live, slavery. Now, here's my take on slavery, and it's titled, "Before You Shackle Me, the Market is Closed." Yes, my own people sold me into slavery. I make no excuses for their betrayal, but I don't care what is being sold at the market. Nobody made you buy me. Nobody made you sail across the 7 seas. Nobody made you examine my manhood like a buck, testing my strength for breeding like choosing fruit at a market. You saw perfection in flesh, no bruises, no damage, just profit potential. Nobody made you count my teeth like a horse at auction, prod my muscles like meat at market, pick over black bodies like bruised fruit, some too ripe, some too green, some too damaged to buy. Yes, my own people sold me into slavery, but nobody made you buy me. Nobody made you measure my back for the weight it could bear, inspect my thighs for the miles they could walk, check my arms for the cotton they could pick. Nobody made you assess my body for the sons it could sire, calculate the worth of unborn bucks to work your fields, count future profits in flesh not yet ripe, plan generations of wealth from my blood and bone. The Maori of New Zealand kept their mountains. The Aboriginal Australians kept their sacred grounds. Only those of obsidian skin like mine were torn from earth and ancestry, scattered like seeds in a foreign soul. You asked me in your modern day questions to name a slave in an attempt to prove that he was so long ago, that it's time to move on. As if you didn't erase their names. As if you didn't break the branches of our family trees, as if you didn't burn the maps that led us home. Yes, my own people sold me into slavery. I make no excuses for their betrayal. You stand on the ashes of our records. Got profits from broken bloodlines, guard the gates to our own history while the Atlantic holds the names you drowned. You dare to ask about my ancestors after stripping away their names. After breaking their tongues, after scattering their bones across oceans, after burning every bridge that led them back home. Yes, my own people sold me into slavery. I make no excuses for their betrayal. Yet nobody made you bring me to an unknown world and plunge me into a deeper darkness where roots are severed from their soul, where my children's children will be born in chains and stay shackled forever, where my blood forgets its source, where freedom never rings. The proverbial grocery store is closed. All items locked up till sunrise. No more black bodies to pick over, to put back, too damaged to buy. The price was generations lost, languages forgotten, stories scattered like ashes. Yeah, my own people sold me into slavery. I make no excuses for their betrayal. Still, I was not waiting here for you. Nobody made you sail across the 7 seas to find me. Nobody made you buy me at all. And finally, with that in mind, I think about what is happening in this country today, in the people who look like me and people with different, or you name it. It is so important to still rest and find strength in your individuality, to find strength in your uniqueness. These are things that we bring to the table. These are the roots that we should remember. So finally, this piece is titled Grammatically Incorrect, a Spoken Word Symphony. They try to box me in, pin me down with labels, nouns that hang heavy, verbs that dictate my every move. But I am not an object to be possessed, nor a marionette with strings for limbs. I am not a whisper of is or was, not a future tense they can predict. My being is a hurricane, ever shifting, rewriting its own narratives, unfurling in defiance of their finite definitions. Forget your adjectives, your modifiers that diminish me. My light burns too bright to be dimmed by their pale descriptions. I am not dependent on their approval, their scales of good and bad. I wear my uniqueness as a crown, a tapestry woven with threads of resilience and fire. Conjunctions cannot connect me to their expectations. Prepositions cannot place me beneath their gaze. I am not an afterthought, a footnote in their grand narrative. My voice will rise, a chorus untamed, unconfined by their rules. Yes, I am grammatically incorrect. A sentence that breaks the mold. My language is the language of rebellion, a symphony of the marginalized, the misunderstood. It sings of freedom, of carving my own path, of being emphatically me, unapologetically me. Take me as I am, a riot of colors, a whirlwind of emotions. I am the sunrise bursting through cracked pavements, the divine bloom in the desert sand. I am not an error, but an evolution, a testament to the beauty that lies beyond the confines of your textbook grammar. So let them parse me, analyze me, label me with their sterile terms. I will laugh in the face of their limitations, for I am free, not just grammatically, but in my soul, in my spirit, in the very essence of my being. There is nothing about me that can be described as a noun, a verb, or a cage. I cannot be either and or budded out of existence. I am the phoenix that rises beyond the ashes, wings ablaze, forever soaring beyond the reach of someone else's prescribed world. I fearlessly embrace my own individuality while I make my own mark in history. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Bravo.
No wonder you're sweating.
Sir Mike.
Amazing.
Amazing. Amazing,
you.
Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Mute as
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, great voice, Michael.
I appreciate it. This is a wonderful forum, so I'm glad that I could be here, Mike.
Thank
You
you.
know how I
man.
feel about you, man. You're all
Yeah.
right.
And if I could,
Yeah, that was
Mike,
great.
I just want to say, as someone who deals with anxiety and depression both, I totally I got that one.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. That's one of my favorites. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
You read like a house on fire.
Mhm.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think we're all just catching our breath here.
I'm trying to catch mine too.
All right. While Michael catches his breath, I'm going to turn
Yeah.
things over to our kind of co-host, Mr. Ken Holland.
Hey, hey. So I'd asked Mike if I could introduce Arthur Russell. About a year ago, I'd received my latest copy of Rattle, and it had with it the 2023 chapbook contest winner, and it was Arthur's. So I put it in the bedside reading. Found that moment to start dipping in, and was hooked from the get-go. So looking whether through his website or through Red Wheelbarrow that he's a huge part of, which is a reading venue, cultural center, a publishing endeavor as well. Reached out to Arthur and asked if he would be kind enough to read for CAPS, and which he was. The bonus was that since then, in December, wound up he was also featuring at the New Paltz reading series, Next Year's Words. So I actually got a chance for the first time to hear him read. So you're in for a treat. But his bio, And I don't mind having said what I said because his bio is really short. So Arthur Russell is the winner most recently of the 2024 Rattle Poetry Prize, the 2023 Rattle Chapbook Prize, and the 2023 Fractured Lit Flash Fiction Prize. His poem, After Midnight, was longlisted for the Powered Poetry, Love, and Eros Prize. He lives in Nutley, New Jersey, where he practices law. So do applaud heartily or he will sue you. Ladies and gentlemen, Arthur Russell.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate it. And I wanted to thank Holly and Michael for their great readings, and also Mike and Greg for having me. We had Mike down in Rutherford, New Jersey, just this past Wednesday, featuring for the Red Wheelbarrow, and he blew all of our minds. So I hope to do only half as well as he did, and that would be a lot. So I'm going to read a few poems, and I think I'll tell you before each one how long it's going to go. Sometimes you wonder those things. So I'm going to read that, among other things, the poem that won the Rattle Prize for last year. It's about 4 minutes long. Among other things, I bought her 2 pairs of wide-legged jeans at Target last week. For the longest time, like a year, I'd asked random women on elevators where they got their wide-legged jeans and report back to her. It's a great look, I'd say. You'd look great in them. And she'd say, I have something like that. And I'd say, no, you don't. And it would go on like that, with no wide-legged jeans in her closet. So we're in Target last week, picking out Legos for her grandson. And there they are, wide-legged jeans, dozens of them, racks and racks, in black and creamy white and olive drab. She couldn't escape. I stood outside the changing room while she tried them. I hadn't done that since my daughter and I, on Saturdays at the mall, shopped at Madewell, and while I waited outside the heavy curtained dressing booths, I'd watch the young store clerks refolding clothes that had been tried and rejected. I loved to watch them fold sweaters, jeans, anything really. They were so bored, so deft, with plain, unconscious competence in their soft fingers smoothing the fabric ahead of the fold. And there, at Target, as I waited outside the dressing room, I watched another guy, sort of my age, leaning with his elbows on his shopping cart handle, clicking his phone till his wife came out. And a young woman stuck her head out of one of the doors and called to her mom to come see. But her mom didn't hear. So I turned to the mom and I said, Mom, she needs you. I like stuff like that, where I fit into life. Then my gal emerged in white socks, holding up the tail of her blue chambray shirt, exposing the waist of those creamy white pants. And yesterday, I picked her up to go to my sister's house for dinner, and she's walking down the driveway towards my truck wearing those wide-legged jeans and a black tee, and her white hair all scrunched into waves like she likes it. She knows she looks good, and she wants me to see. So she holds her arms out like a wine bottle opener, then lowers them slowly, which draws my heart right out of my chest. But the weird part, and this is the part I'm reluctant to tell, is how in my life, which has been going on for a while, when one of these moments where something I've wanted but thought wouldn't happen occurs, like these wide-legged jeans, or meeting my gal in the first place, when happiness is like a brand new shirt, my mind calls out the name of my first friend, Andy, who withdrew very early from life. How this happiness Makes you think of that other happiness you had. And it's not like I see his face. It's just his name anymore, Andy, that comes to mind. Like kissing the spine of a prayer book and reaching out to touch the passing Torah. This next one is called Easter Sunday Morning. Oh, also, I'm just going to post in the chat a link to where you can get my book from Rattle at the car wash. And also, if you'd prefer to get it from me, it's $6 on Rattle, $5 to me. Put it in an envelope, mail it to me, and I'll mail it back to you. They're the same either way. It's just they gave me 500 copies of it when I won the chapbook prize. All right, this next one's called Easter Sunday Morning. It's about 4.5 minutes long. Easter Sunday morning. A pigeon, pursued by a shadow, shot the gap between buildings like a fighter plane from the early sun toward my balcony. Its skull rang the double pane with a metal clang, and it fell to the concrete floor, its gray chest heaving. Specks of head feather made a circular mark on the glass. I slid the heavy door aside. The noise that fills our city courtyards poured into my apartment like foam peanuts in a shipping box. I went outside in my pajama pants and knelt between the pigeon and my failed avocado, whose chopstick crutch was stouter than the stem I'd twist-tied to it. And the bird I feared as a city boy to touch, whose death I feared to share, compassion caught like a foot in the fork of a tree, lay breathing slowly. It had a short, yellow beak with dark striations like an old piano key. And at its base, instead of pince-nez glasses, waxy bulbs of whitish nostril lay. The tiny head, where it had punched the glass, swelled like the knot in a Sikh boy's turban. Its well black eye was glazing toward milk. On the next roof over parapet, nonchalant and motionless, a pyramid of patience, I saw the shadowed peregrine waiting for the pigeon it had chased to panicked death to die. And I, with eyes made mother hard, stood and thrust my chin out at the falcon, which turned its head to show me how its dark beak curved. I reached back for the beach chair then, too intent to turn away, and set it like a tent above the dying bird, and went inside and closed the sliding door behind me, cutting off the noise. The white quilt that enveloped my young wife shone in the dark like the snow on the lawn of our current home when I go outside in the early dark to shovel. I sat on the edge of the bed. I touched her hairline. Our love then had a jigsaw fitting calm. I told her I had looked up from my coffee, seen the pigeon come, more bomb than bird, and crash into the billboard of itself that was our window, and how I felt my heart at impact shrivel like a plastic bag in flames when the poor thing fell and lay there lifeless, but for its twitching, tangled, scaly feet. But when we reached the living room, even before I slid the door aside, I saw, beneath the folding chair, the pigeon wasn't where I'd left it, and the dead avocado stem lashed to the chopstick jutted from its hilltop in the chipped clay pot, and outside, in the noisy brick-walled courtyard, neither on the parapet nor anywhere, the falcon with its terrible intent. Nothing of the pigeon remained on the balcony, except the ring its head left on the door. We stood that way forever, my wife and I. Even now, we stand there in our sleep clothes, I who saw it, and she who only heard of it from me. This next one is called Gravity in Jerusalem. In a funny way, I wrote it back in October of 23, around the time that the war was just getting going after the invasion or attack by Hamas on Israel. And I was wondering whether there was anything I could say, and I still wonder whether I have standing to say anything at all about it. So this poem, called Gravity in Jerusalem, is what I wrote. I wanted to grow up to be a rain cloud over an upstate reservoir during a drought. Then it was my ambition to become a slender woman, or a book jacket cut from a grocery bag, or a trumpet, or a garden rake, or a handkerchief embroidered with a strawberry heart. The evenings were much longer then. I wanted to be a satchel with latches that slid sideways to open, a cutting board bearing the wounds of nutrition on my back, the scratchy absolution of a dollar bill passing through the coin slot of a charity tin at the cashier of a candy store. Like the colors in comic books when comic books were printed on foolscap, my irises would dilate for the dishwasher light in the darkened kitchen and contract again at the lighted refrigerator door. The brass drain in the kitchen sink, scrubbed with persistence to a low brass glimmer, was my art school. It whispered, "We are brass kin, and you are me in human form." I wanted to grow up to be the lavender soap in a lingerie drawer, or the handgun under the cable knit tennis sweater on the top shelf of the hall closet. I envied the moldings around doorways and wanted more than friendship to crawl inside a mezuzah and read its scrolls in seclusion, and to emerge from my cell like morning in Manhattan with muted light on the brick facade of an apartment house. I wanted to marry a book of matches once, to have children like misaligned wallpaper seams and teach them how to blow their noses and spit up phlegm, and how to fit a square God in a round soul, and how to see all fathers as bags of donated clothing waiting by the door. There is more light in a glass doorknob than gravity in Jerusalem. This poem, this is called Jamie. It's a persona poem. It's the longest one I'll read. It's 9 minutes long. Jamie. And my brother died on 9/11. And like so many others who died that day, he lived in Middletown, New Jersey, and his wife was Jamie, the daughter of a radiologist. And Jamie had played the part of Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing in high school in Cedarhurst, one of the 5 towns, and gone to college at Bard, and wore white shoes, and had white jeans, many pairs, as she was skinny and blonde and smart, and that was her style. And she'd met my brother at his job at Cantor Fitzgerald, where he worked as a bond trader, and he drove his Mercedes-Benz S500 to the city every day. And on the day he'd purchased that car, which was painted midnight blue, with cash from his first big Christmas bonus, he drove it to my house, and he parked it in my driveway and exulted because he'd gotten the very car we talked about when we were teenagers growing up in Brooklyn, the greatest production line automobile in the world. And he had thrown himself on the hood of the car and hugged it. And he was on the 105th floor of One World Trade. And his S500 was in a parking lot on Washington and Rector Streets. A parking lot that had a peculiar open concept elevator system for the cars. And that's where we found it after he was murdered by Mohammed Atta and his gang, whose pictures were displayed on television screens night after night as the stories of their infiltration and their pilot training and even their shaving the hair from their bodies on the morning of the terror and the boarding of the flights in Maine with box cutters were told over and over to the Americans, whose love of religious freedom and hatred of Muslims sleep like moles in a burrow. And at this time, I was a single man living in Nutley, New Jersey, though originally from Brooklyn, where I had stayed up all night on August the 8th, 1974, with my best friend in high school, who is not my friend anymore because, among other things, he owns a gun shop in Atlanta, to get a copy of the next day's New York Times with the headline that said, "Nixon resigns," when it was thrown from the truck in front of the candy store under the elevated subway station on Avenue J at East 16th Street. And when the dew of youth evaporated, I became an attorney and clerked for a powerful judge who got me a job at a good firm. And I pitched my tent in Nutley, not a Jewish town. And I was unaware that a man does not make himself a Jew, that he's made a Jew by God or by other people. So I pitched my tent in Nutley, home of the Italian Catholics who had displaced the Methodists, who displaced the Germans, who displaced the Dutch settlers, who had colonized this land on the northern end of the parcel that, quote unquote, was sold to Robert Treat by the Lenny Lenape on July 11th, 1667, bordered on the north by the Third River, a tributary of the Passaic, flowing east from Garrett Mountain. And I had a cute center hall colonial in the arts and crafts style built in 1919, the year our father, the father of both me and my brother, was born in Malden, Massachusetts, the year the Spanish flu killed 20 million. And when my brother died, he and Jamie had not had any children. And my father sat on a low bench in mourning, and he was weakened. And I could see how he clutched his hands between his knees and how he was broken by it. And I wanted to comfort him, but he would not be comforted. And on the third day of his mourning, on a low seat, he looked up at me and, paraphrasing Genesis chapter 38, he looked at me and he said, "Gary, soon, someday, you should go and lie with Jamie and make with her a baby for your brother. For if you don't, then he will die again." And I refused. And I said, "No." And he reasoned with me and he wept. And I looked into the folds of his face and into the black in his eyes. And I said, "No." And he became angry, and I became angry, and I left his side, and I went into the kitchen, and Jamie saw how I looked. And she asked me what had made me angry. And I refused to tell her. And she said, Gary, you have to tell me. And I looked away and she said, Gary, look at me. And I looked and I saw that she was wearing black and her long blonde hair was tied back loosely and she was my sister. And I refused to tell her what my father had said, and she was hurt and I was sorry. And in the months that followed, I did all I could for her as a brother. And I knew the way from Nutley to Middletown in my sleep. And it came to pass in January of 2002, my brother's midnight blue Mercedes-Benz S500 came down that open concept elevator in the parking lot on Washington and Rector Streets where my brother had parked it on that morning. And I saw it coming down the elevator, and it was covered with a thick coating of ash. And the windshield wipers made fan shapes where the ash was pushed aside. And the ash was the ashes of the World Trade Center and those who had died on 9/11, and my brother among them. And I remembered the day my brother had come to my house to show me his new car. And he threw himself across the hood of it, exulting. And now look, here was my brother's car, covered in the ashes of the dead. And I kept my brother's car. And 3 years later, Jamie and I were married. And we have 2 boys, 2 wonderful boys who know things and say things. 2 boys with dark eyes and light faces. But this morning, when I read that the father of a boy at the Sandy Hook Elementary School had killed himself, now 6 years after that rampage, and I recognized the toxic plume that grief spreads down below the ground, a plume that joy cannot illumine or approach, had poisoned that poor man. Nor has it let me go. And I sat down on the basement steps and held my hands between my knees.
Mm-mm.
That was unbelievable.
This, got time for another one?
One more.
Yeah, man, go for it.
Okay. This is called pickled herring with onions in cream sauce. I do genuinely hate falling in love with an artist, writer, or musician who has recently died, as I've just done with Louise Glick, who has that aspect of an articulate, cocksure, unsympathetic teacher up to whose expectations I must religiously fail to live. God damn, but it feels good to be home in disappointment. People's in me and my own in myself, and to endorse regret and to kick myself for how easy and how bet the farm daring it would have been to have borrowed the money and to have walked those 3 short blocks from my first apartment on West 15th between 7th and 8th over to the Village Vanguard to see Bill Evans when he was alive. How easy? So easy. If only I'd known who he was, and I wasn't too scared and too busy writing in a journal or on my Smith Corona with Saul Steinberg's New Yorker's View of the World New Yorker cover taped to the wall above my writing table. I do genuinely love falling in love with an artist, writer, or musician who has recently died because the regret is so life-affirming. In that same era, I went to the Sam S. Schubert Theater on West 48th Street on August the 4th, 1974, to see A Little Night Music the day after it closed. I was and remain so casually clueless. It's such a hallmark of me. It's stamped on my bottom. Turn me over, you'll see it. I love having missed whole centuries of art like a vacancy sign in a motel window. I love how relatively lately I arrived at the beauty of Jewish women of Eastern European descent, with their dark, thick curls and their faces filled with my past, and how I regret having avoided them like pickled herring with onions and cream sauce when I was young. I love my regret the way Rilke loved his Requiem for a Friend, for its limitless elegiac solitude. It was always solitude that pulled me back at the door to the street. Don't go, my solitude said. Come back. Practice guitar. Read more Louise Glick. Write. Turn off the lights. Make sure the windows are locked and the ashtrays are empty. Then you can go. Then you can go. Then you can go if you can tear yourself away from me. But I'll bet, said solitude, you love me more. Thank you all so much for listening to me.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic, Arthur.
Superb.
Yes, very good.
Feel free to unmute and comment. That was incredible, Arthur.
Moving, just irresistibly. You can't get away from that. That hangs on you like a shadow. It's
Wonderful, Arthur.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and reading for you. It's great. I like this group. I think I'll come back.
Nice. Please.
Made a huge impression if you look at chat, if you've got chat open.
Well, I didn't look at it while I was reading, but I'll save it right quick before it disappears at the end.
You'll be gratified because people were taking note of so many great lines. For myself, I began quoting you back to you, and I couldn't keep up. Line after line was both original and striking, compelling for the narrative power or juice of the poem. And I was just saying, wow.
A lot.
Great. Those poems are all for my next collection, and some of them were pretty much in the order that they'll be there. And I left out a few of the ones that are more on the page and less for the ear. But hopefully I'll get that chapbook out sometime this year or next. Depending on what the gods of publication say.
I want to thank Arthur Russell, Michael Ingram, and Holly Iglesias tonight. Everybody, big hand. Thank you guys. That was just tremendous.
Yay.
Yay. Everybody can say a couple of kind words. We're going to jump into the open mic. We've had a special request. We're going to let Linette go first because she has elsewhere to be. So Linette, you're up.
Hi, good evening. Awesome featured poets tonight. Thank you so much for blessing the mic and inspiring us. I'm going to do two short pieces. The first one is called Rent. So much we knew, how slow we grew. With thoughts unwound, life speeding around. If with patience first, how time has cursed my lonely stance on partner dance. I stand in shame with no one to blame but myself. I made this mess. What life is left to do my best? I worry on life not going on. My lonely walk, my whispered talk. So softly I call, so noisy I fall. Please release. My soul release. Give my soul a new lease. Thank you. That's the first piece. And then the next piece is called Afraid of My Shadow. So the first piece, that's a very old one, and Afraid of My Shadow is a very recently written piece. Afraid of my shadow. My shadow is just a replica of me. Yet it has me scared because it knows my fears. It knows my lies, even knows when I spy and cause mischief. Just thinking about this makes me scared stiff. I think I can list many transgressions that my shadow would share in confession. Scared and afraid, it knows when I slipped away and had not paid for the drinks. This unease makes me sick with derision that I can't think straight and make any decisions because my shadow can spill the beans. So this means I have to come clean. I don't know what to do. I am in an overthinking stew, afraid of my shadow's spell, afraid that my shadow would tell the world of my iniquities with not even an ounce of pity. My soul, a tale of two broken cities, head lowered in shame with no one to blame, afraid of my shadow. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Linette, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks for hanging in there with us tonight.
Wow.
Mark Fogarty, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. I had a poem in Cap's anthology recently, so I thought I would read that one tonight. And it's called No Picture Survives of Memory Jones. You remember that there was a terrible fire in South Africa in which 90 or 100 people were killed. And the Times did a section on the people that were killed in the fire. And I was taken by the fact of this young girl that there was no picture of her because no picture survived of her. So this is called No Picture Survives of Memory Jones. Nothing of Memory Jones survived the fire. If a photo was taken in her 2 years on Earth, it vanished with her and her parents. The Times said she enjoyed gospel music and hanging with her mother when she made food. My student's mother lives in an SRO. I've seen a picture. It looks as grim as a debtor's prison. She has a hospital bed and a second bed for her homeless daughter for the nights she wants a place to sleep or something to eat if there's any food there. Her daughter was in the room the night the place caught fire. She carried her mother out of the burning building. May the memory of memory be a blessing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. And I'd like to do one other one. This is from the Red Wheelbarrow, number 16. And I'm a fan of Lewis and Clark, and I've been to many of the places that they have been. And so this is a trip to one of them called the Earthen Dam. I walked on one of the wonders of the world, an earthen dam, a berm across the forceful Missouri, just above Pier, don't call it Pierre, where I stayed in a motel with cinder block walls as dreary as my college dormitory for $35, dirt cheap even then. At the berm, the abrasive Missouri reluctantly backs up into Lake Oahe. 200 years ago, the water backed up at Mobridge and swept aside the cemetery of Fort Manuel Lisa, swept away Sacagawea's bones. 25 years old, and she lived there with a fine infant girl and her husband, Charbonneau. There were giants then, women made of stone at every turn in the blue world of the river. Clark was the governor of the territory. He had a wide heart. He took her son, Pomp, saw to it he grew up well. Lewis, depressed and addicted to morphine, eyed his suicide pistol all night long. If only Clark might be coming up the trail to rescue him from his deadly American dreams. The gun went off just before dawn. Don't worry about missing the plane, they told me. The captain and crew will be on the shuttle, and it's the only one. Keep your eye on them at the breakfast tables. when they stand up to go, it's time for you to follow. Time for me to go, me with my earthen bones, who went up the river to see one of Sitting Bull's graves. He has more than one. Great men often do. I sat beside it and he gently shooed me away with zaps of static electricity that struck me in the ankle from the grass. The Oahe Dam is 245 feet high, 9,000 feet across, 3,500 feet wide at the base. I wouldn't mind seeing it again, to watch in vain for the hero coming up the trail. It must have taken all that vast water for those tender bones to get washed away. Thank you.
Fantastic. That was fantastic, Mark. I've lived in most of those places and more in Montana, Colorado, and Kansas, and Nebraska. You evoke it beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Naomi Bindman, you're next.
Okay. I'm not used to being this early. So this is a prose poem. I don't usually like to write to prompts, but the prompt was to your internal landscape, and that resonated for me. So this is called Heartscape. I am the lake, the white-capped waves crashing wildly, and the quiet swells licking the island's lichened rocks. I am the islands nestled in solitude among the comfort of my own ebb and flow. I am the blueness of the bright sky kissing the greenness of the water's surface along the hem of horizon, that elusive space between day and night, sorrow and joy, love and pain. I am the hiding stars and path of moonlight into the dark. I am the seagulls gliding below the rim of the surrounding mountains, little white clouds of grace. I am the minnows and rainbow trout, scales reflecting undulating ribbons of sunshine. I am the hope of tadpoles and frogs frolicking, insects within their flowery ecstasy. I am the spidery webs in wet grasses tucked tenaciously in contours of sinuous soil collected in winding lines of centuries-old stones. I am the soil gratefully receiving the rain. I am the rain, the patter on dry sand releasing the earth's aroma and the storm. I am the uprooted pines, the songbirds keening for lost nests, the raging wind ripping seed heads from flowers. I am the seeds that wait. Somehow, there we go. Okay. And this is called, I keep losing it. All right. This is called Wonder. The way a swallow balances on a single swaying stalk, the way its bones are hollow, and a yellow leaf wafts upward like a butterfly or skitters like a chipmunk across the forest floor, and a tanager glows like a coal in the canopy. The way, if you sit still long enough, letting yourself blend into the dark, you can follow firefly trails. The way some things you can only see from the corner of your eye, like the Pleiades or rainbow light at the edges of clouds. The way sugar is made of sunshine and rain, and our bodies are exploded stars from thousands of millions of miles away. The way strawberries shimmer like jewels hidden below green leaves, and when cut open, their hearts bleed red like us, but oh, so sweet. The way you still visit in my dreams, and when I awake, feel you here.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, Naomi.
Beautiful.
As always.
Wow.
Thank you.
I see that tanager.
The one, the only, Mr. Brian Liston. You're next.
Thank you, Mike. This one's also going to be on. This is also one for of the Capsa Poetry Anniversary Anthology, which you all should check out. I'm going to read my poem, which is Noise, which is on page 90. It's called Noise for Samantha. Noise, scream, whisper, amplifies, numbs, stresses, world until we ask for, crave, silence. And just want to make sure I got that in there. But I also want to do two others if I'm allowed. This one is a Troilé, as I want to make sure I get that right. But this one is a bit of an explication about that. A bit of an explication. People know that I'm autistic, which makes one person's a speech about autism when it comes to the current administration feel like a little confrontational if I'm blunt. So this one is untitled as of this point, but it's a Troilé. So this poem will exist long after you're gone, shining facts in spite of your lies and thunder. To prove to an uncaring world that you're wrong, this poem will exist long after you're gone. That you are weak, where we, united, are strong. No one understands us, but we will overturn the throne. This poem will exist long after you're gone, shining facts in spite of your lies and thunder. And this one was my first political poem, so I'll let you all hear it. It's called Episode 47, The Menace Strikes Back. The arts cry out, the echo of a tangerine terrorist, bereft of class, culture, compassion, as Kennedy is invaded by its presence. Countless artists protest as they echo their muse's cry, knowing we are powerful through art, shedding light in darkness. We persist, resist as we drink from our own collective oasis. Oligarchs know only of greed, self-interest, arrogance, power, cutting things they deem worthless, things the artist sees value in, even themselves. Whereas oligarchs mock and suppress weakness, wokeness, and other monsters besides themselves, artists simply observe, feel, react. Artists feel weakness, cries, worries of others, things felt by others, but build strength, communities up in spite of it. Things will get tough, as life shows us, but artists, undercover or not, know that we can resist, thrive, react, do injustices worldwide. We create, using nature and skill to show our souls. Thank you.
Brian, fire it up, buddy.
Brian, jeez, wow.
Well, I feel like I need to say that the episode 47 was my first political poem,
Really?
but the Troilé that I mentioned, that was for RFK, just
Gotcha.
because of what he said about autistic individuals. So I felt like I needed to.
Yeah,
Good.
all right. Righteous and far out.
You keep bringing it, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thanks,
our
Mike.
next up, Margie, you want to read? Margie, we know you're there. She's still with us?
I think so. Looking. No, maybe not.
She might have dropped out.
She might have dropped out. Yeah, I hope she comes back.
All right, our next reader, the one, the only, Mr. Lenny Dellarocca.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Greg, for your long-standing, where'd I go? There I am. Run of this reading. It's incredible, and all the great poets you bring on. And this tonight, the three featured readers, just so amazing. I've got a couple here, new, And this one is called Out on Half Mile Road. All of them lean in the heat this summer day, the fence dressed with poor yellow ones, faded orange ones with brown leaves rasping and twined, crisp with dusty days, even when the sun's face goes cloudwise and the clouds themselves sleep skyward like wisps of aerialists and moths drifting westward of a field, gold as an old dog. The sign, I drive past it, written with black letters, maybe by a child. It says, tired plants. I stop on the left where there's more rocks than grass. They're tired, all right, the plants, falling over themselves in cracked clay pots with holes at the bottom where, should it rain or if a can tilts at them, root water might run out, splash the ground beneath them like blood on the lips of Madame Guillotine. Dying flowers at the tops of stems, dirty ballerinas whose mad froth gone, line up in rows on crooked racks and bough. Gone more than a little while past sleep, like cats on a warm blonde floor. Anyway, the sign really says triad plants. This is a nursery for those who need lawns frilled with crowned congregations and dirt circles under trees. Maybe I'll rescue some from an oppressive June. They'll live a little longer in my care on the porch upstairs, watching mockingbirds and crows swoop into mango and Chinese hibiscus. Maybe they'll wake after a dried out dream, far from anywhere in the rain that now comes sideways through the screen and wets the room. But everything I've tried to grow from a friend's green garden died within days, even with Vivaldi praising them, telling them things about our world. And then, thanks.
Ooh-wee. Wow.
This is real new. I was at a reading and a friend of mine, Holly York, read her poem, and in the poem she had this line that went, the delivery man never turns left, and she explained how she had found out that delivery trucks, UPS, etc., they don't turn left. And I looked it up. I took the line. I thought it was a great title for a poem. And then I looked it up, and it has, from the Harvard Review, it says an estimated 90% of the turns made by UPS trucks are right turns. New York City officials say left turns are 3 times more likely than right turns to cause a deadly crash involving a pedestrian. So the delivery man never turns left. The algorithm can't beat the dream of making a left turn, no matter how clever the equation's rigmarole. White shirts and analytics can't erase what thrills him, what keeps this driver geographically taut in his neighborhood as he ricochets across town like a man inside a Etch-a-Sketch. He's easy peasy, delivering boxes of linen, pillowcases, gilded baby spoons, and magic pills for night cramps, with mercurial turns in his repertoire, his artistic brushstrokes of the streets. All the while, the boxes in the back whisper, left, left, left. A poet's word overriding policy and numbers, as lyrical as a woman's back. Someone he loved one summer in a beach house, the color of weathered cardboard. It makes him happy to hum with truck, left, left. He feels it in the wheels, hot for widdershins, the engine singing purple prose. The driver brings cocktail mix, Art Deco swizzle sticks to the Femme de Lune Club, brings clocks that make the sound of thunderstorms to the Museum of Brief Affairs, where sweet lovers need sweet machines to make their room storm furious. I see him climb into the cab where it's dark as chocolate, his radio connected to rain, slick streets, nowhere. And like a man in the wrong story, drives down an alley to the Hercules bar, sits with Rosalita, his hand around a tumbler of drink, his fist around his heart from another time, his other hand, the claw he was born with, flops at his side like a dead car ride, the side of the road, grinning at him, sunlight and broken glass, claw rests at his side like a gift, a stroke that left him unable to love. He climbs into the dark hole of his truck, which smells like fruit aged beyond vitamins, but might be good for wine, who knows? What kind of truck is this, I say? The kind with no adherence to somber calculations or algebraic rules, he says, where the algorithm ends at the rumbling of a dream, because this is the place where left turns sleep. Thanks.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Where the hell did you come up with age beyond vitamins?
Probably the drugs back in the 60s.
Yeah, I blame them too. Yeah. Thanks, man. All right, batting fifth, Mr. Ken Holland.
Oh yeah, it's always the easiest thing in the world to follow Mr. Dellarocca and to follow everybody else here tonight. What a really amazing and uniform quality of work here. So it's been a pleasure. 2 poems. This first is called Flying Ace, and it's in these, post World War I as a metaphor. I've reached the point where I'm useful as a biplane is useful, as a crop duster for rural farms and the occasional vintage air show, where the crowd has grown predictably thin and memory takes wing as if it knew its way home. Death, of course, is the amnesia for ever having lived. Strange to think this is what life aspires to attain. A cut-rate county fair whose lights seem to guide our way in. A carousel of flight where we've yet to learn it's best not to grab the ring. The second poem, I've been writing a number of poems that use the anaphora form, like the first line is in part or in its entirety is the first line in all the subsequent stanzas. The poem is called If You Catch My Drift. Because the air caught fire, dinner was served indoors, though the coffee was set out on the porch to keep warm. Because the air caught fire, clouds were grilled medium rare, then seasoned with despair before being laid upon the table. Because the air caught fire, meteorologists reverted back to astrology, the way the elderly revert back to babbling, while clutching to their chest their childhood. Because the air caught fire, visitors to the art museum were patted down with a gentle touch to be sure they weren't about to combust. Because the air caught fire, late-night comedians set the date they'd all self-immolate for the sake of their audience and their hot, bright laughter. Because the air caught fire, political dissidents found little room left to live, with so many others now living underground as they did. Because the air caught fire, human migration finally slowed to the occasional stroll in the smolder of a city park of a smoke-blind nation. because the air caught fire. Renaissance fairs invoked the sky as the medieval sign of the end times, of God's love for jesting and jousting. Because the air caught fire, the crippled once again stood up and walked, though it was no more true now than it was before. Because the air caught fire, we were told to breathe, just breathe, to stroke our children's hair, and remember our promise to take them next week to the county fair. Thank you.
Well done.
Oh,
Sign of the times.
yeah. Well, wow, that was amazing, Ken. I hope you see what the comments are in chat.
Yeah, you blew the chat up.
Beautiful.
More interested in the voice that's to follow. Bring it on.
Ron Bremner. Speaking of voices to follow, Ron Bremner, you're next. He is still here, isn't he?
He's here. Perhaps he stepped.
How's that? Is that any better?
There he is. All right.
Oh yeah. This one was published in some insignificant little journal that publishes just about everybody that submits to it. But I was heartened when I got a note from a person who read it, and she had lost her husband in the early part of this year, and she said this poem really was a comfort to her. So at least that's something. I kissed your shadow in the dark while music skipped through the pines and chill shivered our bones. Your shadow told me it was not you, but I knew better as it hugged me like an ocean hugs sand. Thank you and have a pleasant night.
Ron, thank you, buddy.
Awesome. Ron, my God. That having lost someone near and dear to me, I gotta say that moved me in so few lines, but it moved me deeply. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. Tim Brennan, you're next. Tim, you still there?
I am. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Trouble getting. This is a poem that I wrote a while ago. I hope I haven't already read it here, but here it goes. It's called Gertrude's Roundup. In the yard before us is a path to a well, a very well and pleasantly taken by the glade of a forest near a pasture lately grazed upon, and somewhat lovingly, where a river flows by itself, and somewhere where a thorn takes root in the mind. My mind, for example, where you could see what was once a pasture or orchard now enclosing houses in the process of construction called progress, with grass neatly clipped to make a lawn. A lawn is an intention, is it not, of grass in itself and for itself, and comprised of grass grown with intention, isolated from and fundamentally different from grass by chance. What is a weed? A weed is two words, and is sometimes thought of as ugly, often harmful, and as having a polluting effect on the homogeneous lawn. That is a sentence. A weed is not a sentence, nor is it any kind of grammar or a punishment, but is often punished as undesirable, uncultivated, and something that grows uncharmingly, disfiguring lawns to the mind trained in geometric precision and of lawn intentionality. Weeds can grow like random thoughts and evoke memories, sometimes sweetly, sometimes bitterly. A homogeneous, erect, and trimmed lawn may aspire to the mathematical, suggest equations or syllogisms, have its edges read length by width with all angles corresponding to rigor and reason. Ontologically, weeds are rarely regarded in favorable terms. Weeds provoke embarrassment and are hardly amusing. They're reacted to like a lie once told that can be neither proved true nor forgotten. Weeds are not cushions nor cousins, and once forcibly purged from the trimmed, standardized lawn, shrivel like bad thoughts and get stuffed into the trash. They seem unable to but offend and diminish a precise and rigorous frame of mind. Though my mind, which lacks both precision and rigor, has many times been led by weeds down endless, overgrown, though often delightful paths unto exhaustion, which has also led to taking a glass or two of wine. Not to kill the weeds that grow there, but to soften their continual rumbling and verbal intrusions. Drinking wine is no longer considered a healthy practice. Removal by killing, though, is often a pastime. Thank you.
Brilliant. That was brilliant, Tim. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You sustained the night at such a high level. Oy, wow.
It's been a great night.
Yes, it has, and it's going to keep getting even better. The gentleman behind Silence is Consent, Mr. Christopher Bogart. You're next, Chris.
Thank you. I want to read one poem from Silence is Consent, and then one poem that I'd like to read for Juneteenth. The first one is where the title of the book came from, and it's in Silence is Consent. Martin Luther King said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Silence is sometimes defined as the absence of sound, but silence is really the absence of action. Silence, however, is always profound. It punctuates, communicates, sometimes in pages, most often in volumes. Silence counts its victims not in hundreds or thousands, but in hundreds of thousands, in millions. Silence has forever been complicit in the silencing of the voices of millions of souls in Uganda, Rwanda, in Cambodia and Armenia, in Auschwitz, in Dachau, in Bergen-Belsen, in Baba Yar. Silence is cowardice, its lips sealed as our most basic freedoms are held hostage to the absence of protest, the absence of action, the absence of sound. Silence is all of these, but most of all, for all of these, silence is consent. And then the second poem that I wanted to read is called, and this is for Juneteenth. It's called Four-Letter Word. What was that word, that four-letter word from Carolyn Bryant that killed Emmett Till? Was it lies? Was it rope? What was that word, that four-letter word that strangled the life from Elijah McClain? Was it neck? Was it hoop? What was that word, that four-letter word that held George Perry Floyd's black neck to the curb? Was it free? Was it knee? What was that word, that four-letter word that fired the bullet that killed Dr. King? Was it fear? Was it fate? Or was it just hate? Thank you.
Christopher, thank you. Christopher Bogart, everybody. Editor, publisher of Silence is Consent.
Fantastic, Christopher. Thank you.
Christopher was nice enough to actually include me in this. So there you go. Thank you again. Christopher, after Christopher, Ruby Carson, you're with us.
Hi, I really enjoyed all the poets. I have two poems to honor parents, basically. Red Schoolhouse. Before we go to school, Children run races with different skin tones: hazelnut, toffee, and java. Butterflies flutter by, children with beads in their hair, wide eyes, corn rolls of rainbows, bobby socks and patent leather shoes, curly locks, jump rope, plays leapfrog. Father wear white pants and a green shirt, his legs burnt by the sun goddess. The second one is schoolhouse and school bus. Comes to the street corner where all the people go, in front of the store to pick up the children near and far. The bus wheels roll slowly down the bumpy roads. Do not get hit, young man, by a car, the father screams at the children on their way to school. Parents have left them alone playing on the road. Neighbors look when daddy pucker his lips to give a sweet kiss to his daughter on the cheek. Beautiful child. Daddy loves her so much. Daddy's auburn eyes of devotion holds the child's fragile hands. Walk across the street to the bus, his shoulders strong. Look at the soldier's devotion. Stand in front of the man waiting on the school bus to come to pick up his child. Press the child's head on his chest. Thank you.
Nice.
Ruby, thank you for hanging in there with us.
Wow.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Julian, you're next, if you're still with us. Julian.
Hi.
There he is.
May I share screen, please?
Yes, yes. I'll turn it on right now for you. Hold on. Okay, it should be available to you now.
Limerick for lame X. It's the big beautiful fallout of Elon and Don. Two billionaire cons who once got giddily along. Can't be too glib when the first rat leaves the ship. Even Titanic caps never knew their vessels would flip. But this train wreck was easy to predict. Yawn. I'd rather watch a throwdown on the White House lawn. And this is for my mother, who passed away 8 years ago, June 9th. They dress colorfully. My mother's sari. Some nights my mother's sari enters quietly, unannounced, swirls and curls like incense. She spins me around, fit checks my form, spits, tamps down, cowlick, makes it stick. My mother's sari goes about her business, inspects room by room, scoffs at unpicked socks, unmade bed, unwashed laundry, and unread books. She runs fingers on surfaces, tut-tuts the dust, groans at clouded windows and dish-piled sink. My mother's sari blindfolds my ego, masks my fears, holds my tongue, enters my right ear and comes out clean the other side. She pulls at my nose, massages my shoulders, dissolves my pain, rubs Vicks on my chest, rocks me gently and long, cradles me like a baby in a sarong. My mother's sari reminds me of broom and cane, to look left, look right, and look left again, of crossings and crosses, failures and faith, self-belief and leaps of faith. She churns my heartache, spots the real yearnings from the fake, cackles at my longings and resigned faith. My mother's sari gets dramatic, mixed like the weather, wind and rain, sweat and swelter, whispers to me of seeking sun, shade, and shelter. She rattles on, rinse and repeat, watch and learn, be grateful, forgive but never forget, do or don't do, and which part of no did you not get? My mother's sari is the tie that forever binds. I can't tell silk from spin until she unfurls in. She is grief that enters, checks in, then checks out. She incepts and interrupts, wraps like a wreath, bundles like a blanket, cuddles and coils, then stabs like a foil. My mother's sari leans close, blows a mote in my eye, makes me blink, then winks. She exits as she came, treading lightly. I beg her to stay, but she just sashays away. Thank you.
Oh, Julian, that is heartbreakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Julian. Just to let everyone know, I don't even know how to say this, but we are sharing our words over the last couple of years, literally all around the world. Julian's coming in from Malaysia. Donna Best is in Australia. Ruby's in California. We are all over the place, and I want to thank you all for that. Our next reader, Raphael Kosek.
Hi, it's been a beautiful evening and I enjoyed hearing everyone. I'm reading a poem that's a little bit of an Ars Poetica. I've read it before, but it's revised, and I want to assure Ken, because I wrote it in response to his poem, How Quiet the Words, there are no potatoes in this poem. Okay, Ars Poetica after Ken's hawk. Sometimes I want to bite the finely crafted frisson of jeweled words that take so much bother being prettied up, flourishing their artful intentions, securing our admiration. I have seen your elegant hawk, scrolling circles in the sky, tasted your rain. But I know life is monstrous, taking all we have, devouring our best, strafing our carefully curated days. So I wonder, what good can we do polishing these baubles? I have heard those intimate whispers. I have seen through that dark glass the politic nation grinding towards Bethlehem, the babes falling into the sea, while many gaze elsewhere like Bruegel's steadfast plowmen. That is why I am leaning on the tonnage of my grand piano to write this. All those silent keys, those calibrated strings, that percussive striking, something that could kill with its weight and force. And your hawk, still calling, crying, and the requiem of sky. Thank you.
Just one?
Just one.
That's not fair.
That was beautiful.
That was beautiful, Raphael. Thank you.
My grand piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one, the only Amanda Russell. You're next.
I'm never ready. Okay. So okay, I'm gonna read something very new, and then I'm gonna read one I've read before, but it yeah, anyways, I'll do that in a minute. This one is just for now called Ex-Stepmom. Last time I saw her, she was headed to the old Jeep Cherokee, with her arms full of luggage and sunglasses slipping down her face. It was a divorce 18 years in the making. And I ran across the crisp yard to thank her. My feet were dangling off the bench at Six Flags. I guess even in the shade, the sun was slapping us in the face, and the woman whose processional into the family I helped line with rose petals. The woman who wouldn't let me hold hands with my big sister because she didn't want people at church to think we were gay. The woman who scolded my second reach for a biscuit and complained about the way clothes fit the girlish circle of my body, tilted back the brim of my hat, and spread tear-free SPF 50 across my nose with her pinky. Her hair glistened like a halo around the bright brown pond of her eyes. She said, "Your nose is so small." And this next one, I've read it before, but it found a home. So I'm going to read it again. And it's called After Moving to Texas During the Hottest, Driest Part of Summer. All right, I'm going to read the title again because it runs into the first line. Sorry about that. After moving to Texas during the hottest, driest part of summer, I made a deal with myself to suspend despair for at least 5 years. Suspend, as if from a bridge hung at the height of a cliff, a narrow bridge, across which I walk, holding my breath and my whole life in all 10 fists. Suspend, as one might hang a great weight from the end of a long rope. And let's assume the rope is weatherproof and strong enough to hold the weight of despair. Let's assume I could stand for at least 5 years, that my fists would not give out their grip. Despair, as in even the dandelions refuse to bloom here, as in being the void of hope, the place where it goes when it has lost itself. Despair, like that of one leaf pulling in all the light it can, but no matter what it does, it grew on the stem of the prickly lettuce in this backyard, and summer is bringing us all from wilt to crisp and crack. The yard is broken, is malfunctioning, has grown a black thumb. The yard has cracks wide enough to hold hands with, to stuff with sticks. What I mean is, the yard is like a person in despair, like the woman suspended on that bridge, tossing buckets of water and seeds into the abyss as if she could fill it or heal it. I was on my knees in the yard, building a raised garden out of empty moving boxes. I was racing a storm I didn't believe was coming when my son fell, when my son was suspended and pulled down by gravity and entropy, when he slipped on a warp in the floor of our new rental, when my husband came in to say, "Would you come look because he's not getting up?" And we wrapped him in a gray moving blanket with labels still stuck to it. We carried him to the car, suspended between us. We became the two cliffs, and he the bridge suspended between us, a bridge with a broken leg, broken like clouds cracked by lightning, like the garage door that won't close, and we don't know this neighborhood well enough yet to know if that's okay, but we know rain when we smell it. When its fat splats slap us like it means to break us, we know a storm when we lay our son in the back seat of our car without knowing how to get from where we are now to where we need to be. Thank you.
Awesome, Amanda.
That was unbelievable. Are you kidding me?
Incredible. That
Gorgeous
was
poem.
Thank you.
Love that one, Amanda. Terrific.
Thanks, Lenny.
And is he okay?
Wonderful poems.
Is he okay, Amanda?
Oh, yes, I should have prefaced that. Yes, he is all healed now. It took a year. But yes, he is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
Thank
great,
you.
Amanda.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you
Work
so
of art. What you wrote is a work of art.
All right, so from Amanda's great thing to my foolishness, I'm going to do an Ars Poetica, I guess. Seems to be the running thing today. And this is called Wish. I wish I could write normal poems like normal poets about the tenacity of love and the paucity of the moment, but something derails and I get all twitchy as if Catwoman's hand was in my pocket, and off I go on a whole new tangent that teases and teases, but ultimately fails, as so many editors have assured me. And my second one is from Chris's anthology, Silence is Consent, and this is called Red Knots. The Rufa red knots, North America's most common subspecies, flies the equivalent of the moon and back in its lifetime. Now it faces extinction as we overharvest horseshoe crabs for the terminally corpulent. Tell me again how we are not to blame for everything dying on this planet. Please tell me again. It wasn't clear the first time. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Our next reader is Stephen Roberts.
Okay. All right. I may have written this is a prose poem, Somewhere Just Beyond the Solar System. You know the joke about how cold it was? It was so cold the words the Yukon trappers spoke froze as soon as they were uttered. The trappers had to melt their conversation on the stove to hear what they had said. Your silence is like that. But I have no stove or fire or warmth of any kind inside this frost. You are so far away. I could call this silence meditation, but that would be a lie. I could call it self-reflection, but that would equally be untrue. I crave a word of kindness or affection, but I'd settle for an insult, or better yet, an argument, something to reestablish a connection. And the second poem is called Stasis. Even though I live alone, I put the seat down when I pee. Habit. It's the same reason I wake up from an argument preparing for the next one. Now I am arguing with myself. The day will argue with me too. We have a conversation that never gets resolved, even when it seems it should. I don't know why. Maybe it's the quiet. Maybe it's the sunshine and sky waiting for me like a jealous bride to join them. But I don't. I know I am the obstacle, but I don't know why. I think, I'm free, I'm free. This is what I've dreamed of. I can do whatever I want. But I stand there like Lot's wife, thinking back, longing for the unhappiness that was familiar. I tell myself there is much to do, to be redressed. The floor requires sweeping, the toilet scrubbing, and the books. So many to be shelved, if not read. By evening, the list has grown as long as Rapunzel's hair, and the leaves are falling and choking the guttered eaves, even in summer. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Oh, man, I love that last one, man. Thank you.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Thank you, Stephen. Bob Heman, you're next.
Okay. These are two new information pieces. Information. They will not be asked the worst way to die. They will not be asked how many roads there were. They will not be asked who fired the gun. They will not be asked what the animal was called. They will not be asked what color was chosen. Information. The train shed only sometimes an explanation. At other times, it is the boats that carry the meaning. There is always an animal with no neck and a flower that has no scent. There is always a man who is part of the background. Thank you.
Bob, it's always great to hear you. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Nice and brilliant. Yeah.
Lady A, you're next. You still with us? Lady A.
I don't think she is. I don't think so, Mike.
Okay. Well, that brings us to that will bring us to our last feature, our last open micer. But before we get there, I want to remind everybody there is no reading for first Friday in July. We always take July off. And then we'll be back on July 17th for Third Thursday. I want to thank Holly and Michael and Arthur one more time. You guys were absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And you guys are what make CAPS great. So thank you very much. And the open micers, you guys keep the game as high as possible. So thank you for that.
I do my best, Mike.
That's why you're here, Brian. Thank you very much, buddy. And our last open micer for the evening, the man behind the curtain, Greg Correll.
Okay. All right. I have 3 short poems. That is, they are 10 lines or less. The first is called Duck Neck. In Breton, the kitchen floor is laid stone and sags. Sitting apart from those stout women I hear, I do not see, she is bustling in cotton skirts. A goose honks in the yard. A duck is collected, brought inside. She sits, spreads her knees, sets the pail, positions the bird. She slices its neck. Its body flutters, and the only sound for miles around is the dead already wings settling, a smoke of gaiety evaporating in the tomb. The second one is called Concrete Abstractions. Do not like me. Don't. I can't say why. I am so poorly characterized. I don't deserve love. Oh, love, I burn for you. I give thou my every atom. Touch is underrated. Blow me down. Discrete actions are self-explanatory. That's my juvenile passion. Rancid manure pits under the high planks all fall down. Holy night, round yon mama, kiddo. Jesus makes me grin, his heavenly pieces. I fool you with this. Don't like me. Don't ask why. And the last one is called Story Idea. You have it pretty good, yeah? I'll let go if you let go. Ow, quit pinching me. One layered part is generosity. The other, the pain it causes. One in a golden light. The other, a dark silvery blue. One border watches the storm coming through the screen. The other two eat and argue, Worlds in collision, massive collisions. The story never emerges, unretrievable except shard and salt and sensation. That's it. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Correll.
Great job, Craig.
Thank you, Brian.
That was a great evening, everyone. Unmute yourselves if you want to say a few nice words. And
I just wanted to show Holly. I have my copy of Revolutionary Letters here. So.
Oh, put it in chat. Certainly. If there's a link or something, put it in chat or info.
Yeah, my copy's over in the other room.
My copy's right there. Bye.
That was a wonderful evening, everyone.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Holly.
You're welcome. Remember, there is no first Friday in July. So we'll see you in middle of July or in August. Take care, everyone.
See,
right,
see guys. And Mike, thank you so much for this reading, dude.
You're welcome, man. Come on by anytime you can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
Greg, let's talk during the week if we can.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Okay.
Night, Raphael.
Good night, poets.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Ruby, thank you for hanging out. Ron, thank you. Mark, thanks, everybody.
Okay. Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. Take